All right, let's jump right in. Today's explainer is tackling a massive, honestly kind of invisible problem that's sitting right in the middle of our commercial kitchens, cafeterias, and favorite restaurants. We're digging into the EPA's official guide to reducing wasted food and packaging. Our mission here is to decode these strategies and completely flip how we view this stuff. We want to turn what we usually just write off as garbage into massive operational savings and, frankly, huge environmental victories. So we're going to break down exactly how food service waste happens and, more importantly, the structural playbook to actually fix it.
$100 billion. I mean, let that number sink in for a second. What's truly staggering here is that this isn't even a global statistic. That is the estimated annual cost of wasted food for the commercial food service industry in the US alone. Think about it. When a commercial kitchen tosses food, they aren't just paying the trash collector. They are literally bleeding money on over-purchasing, the labor hours it took to prep that food, and the energy it took to store and cook it. It's just a massive financial hemorrhage.
And to put a visual to those dollars, let's talk about physical volume. In a single baseline year measured by the EPA, over 33 million tons of food hit U.S. landfills. To put that into everyday terms, that's about half a pound of food per person every single day. Or if you really want a vivid picture, that is enough discarded food to completely fill the Rose Bowl Stadium every single day. No joke.
So how on earth do we solve a Rose Bowl-sized daily problem? We need a rock-solid roadmap, and the EPA's core framework is simple, but it demands action. Track, assess, prevent. It's a totally systematic approach. You evaluate exactly what's going into the trash, you figure out why it ended up there, and then you put targeted strategies in place so it just doesn't happen again.
And we're not just talking about the food itself. When you look at food and packaging combined, they make up nearly 45% of all materials dumped in U.S. landfills. Almost half. Almost half of our municipal solid waste is coming from what we eat and what that food is wrapped in. This is exactly why the EPA launched the Food Recovery Challenge. Tackling this giant slice of the pie is literally one of the fastest ways to cut down environmental impacts across the board.
Now, we really need to bust the myth here. A lot of folks out there think that all food waste is just an inevitable cost of doing business. It's really not. The EPA breaks this down into 3 super clear categories. First, you've got avoidable waste. Picture a whole tray of lasagna left over at a buffet just because they made too much. Second is possibly avoidable, stuff that seems like trash but can actually be used, like cooking beet tops or turning stale bread into croutons. Only the third category, unavoidable waste, like your banana peels or peach pits, is stuff that truly cannot be eaten by people.
And why is it so crucial to sort this out? Well, it's the unseen environmental toll. When food rots in a landfill, it doesn't just quietly break down and disappear. It goes through anaerobic decomposition and pumps out methane. And methane is a greenhouse gas that is 21 to 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Plus, think about the resources. Over a quarter of all freshwater consumption in the U.S. goes into growing food that ultimately gets thrown away. So we aren't just trashing the food, we are wasting all the water, oil, and land it took to make it in the first place.
So, let's talk about the food recovery hierarchy. You'll notice this is set up like an inverted pyramid. We're working our way down from the best possible options at the top to the absolute last resorts at the bottom. The ultimate goal, step 1, is source reduction. Just don't generate the surplus in the first place. But if you do have extra, step 2 is feeding hungry people. Step 3 is feeding animals. Step 4 is industrial uses or composting. And the absolute last resort, that tiny little tip at the very bottom, is sending it to a landfill or an incinerator.
Which brings us to step 1, tracking and assessing.
The golden rule here is you absolutely cannot fix what you aren't measuring. The EPA has this free food and packaging waste prevention tool where managers use daily logs to track waste from the kitchen, plate waste from the dining room, and packaging. And when you organize that data, the insights are immediate. A manager can see, okay, we tossed 33 pounds of expired protein, but we also had 16 pounds of produce that arrived completely spoiled. That precise data pinpoints the operational failures. It screams at the manager, hey, you're ordering way too much meat, and you need to have a very serious conversation with your produce supplier.
Let's look at some actionable source reduction strategies.
Think about careful food prep versus a stuffed garbage bin. One of the quickest, most immediate changes a kitchen staff can make is just refining their knife skills. Better knife skills mean you aren't hacking away perfectly usable food and chucking it in the bin during prep. It also means tweaking how you prep. For example, heating soups in smaller, more frequent batches so you aren't left with a massive vat of leftovers at closing time.
And this ties right back into our tracking tools, specifically menu tracking. Say your logs show that 25 pounds of a specific chicken dish got sent back by customers this week, but only 2 pounds of pasta came back. That is a massive red flag. It's hard data proving you need to adjust that recipe, maybe change the cooking method, or honestly, just shrink the portion size because your guests literally cannot finish it.
Next up, real-world success, guest education.
If you're running a buffet or a cafeteria, you really have to wonder, how much does the actual physical setup dictate how people behave? Like, does a super simple mechanical change, say taking away the serving trays from a buffet line, actually stop people from wasting food?
While the data is pretty dramatic, a 2008 study looking at 25 college campuses showed that going trayless slashed wasted food by 25 to 30%. That is huge. When you force people to carry their own individual plates, it creates a physical limit. It stops their eyes from being bigger than their stomachs, basically short-circuiting that urge to load up on 5 different things they're never actually going to eat.
But education is just as powerful as physical limits. Take UC Berkeley's Eat the World, Save the Earth campaign. They set it up so students in buffets who cleared their plates got a little prize, but the students who left food, they actually had to scrape their own leftovers into a separate bin so it could be visibly measured. Boom. Instantly, these students had to visualize their personal waste footprint. So many of them said they had literally never thought about how much food they were tossing until they were the ones physically scraping it into the trash.
So, what's the ultimate takeaway from this explainer? It's simply this. Waste is not a fixed cost. It is absolutely not some inevitable byproduct of being in the food business. By rigorously tracking what goes in the trash, leveling up prep skills, buying smarter, and actually educating the people sitting in your dining room, food service operations can take that $100 billion loss and turn it into a massive, sustainable win.
I want to leave you with a thought here. Just picture the sheer volume of perfectly usable resources getting dumped into landfills every single day. If your garbage bin was an actual labeled line item on your monthly budget, showing thousands of dollars just evaporating into thin air, how fast would you rewrite your menu? How fast would you retrain your staff? Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, everyone. Keep tracking, keep assessing, and I'll catch you in the next one.